Shopify grows your business no matter how far or big you grow. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in.
Host the ultimate backyard barbecue with Whole Foods Market. It's the Hot Grill Summer event through July 16th with sizzling sales on no antibiotics ever boneless beef ribeye steak and beef New York strip steak. Plus, check out sales on sustainable wild-caught Alaska sockeye salmon, organic strawberries, and more. In a hurry? Choose grab-and-go favorites like picnic salads and sushi, plus plenty of cooler-friendly beverages. Make it a hot grill summer at Whole Foods Market.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
Was I just a paranoid and anxious teen with some family troubles and an interest in the paranormal that made me believe these things were happening around me? Or did I open myself up to communication from the spirit realm that night?
I remember staring directly into the cartoonish, empty eyes of the goblin mask he was wearing, and then to the knife. He let loose a primal scream, his rage and frustration boiling over.
From Killer Podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events. This is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we're bringing you 3 stories that seem innocent enough. Just kids being kids, playing their games. That is, until someone gets hurt. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First is a reminder to trust your gut, even when you're a kid. And that stranger watching you play is not your friend. Narrated by Dallas Stark.
My family and I have always gone on a trip during summer break, except for one specific year. The year I was 8 and my sister was 3. We stayed home that summer, and I wish that we hadn't, because that summer, home wasn't safe. We lived in one unit of a multi-storied house, with other families living in the other units. We knew all of the tenants in the building as well as their visiting relatives, and they all knew us. It was rare that someone we didn't know would visit. A wall surrounded our building with only one entrance, a big wrought iron gate. Next to the gate was a small, old-fashioned window with a grill on it and a small opening at the bottom. One day, my sister and I were outside playing with the other kids who lived in our building. I eventually got tired and sat in one of the chairs on the porch. I looked at the gate and saw a man staring through the small window, looking at my sister and my friends. I became concerned as I watched him stare at them blankly. He never looked away. I turned in my chair and signaled to my friend to move out of his sight, but she didn't understand. Frustrated, I was about to stand up when my gaze fell back on the guy, and I realized he was now staring at me. My body froze, and I could feel fear creeping through my bones. I couldn't move, and and I don't know why, but I stared back at him. Suddenly, a smile spread across his face until he was grinning from ear to ear. That scared the soul out of me, and I finally mustered up the courage to get up and run to my friends. I didn't tell them about the man. I just asked them to go inside and upstairs with me, which thankfully they did without questioning. I didn't tell my parents anything about this because I thought they would stop me from playing outside. The next day, we all met up in the same spot to play, and I looked through the window just to make sure he wasn't there. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw no one. 15 minutes later, I glanced out the window and saw the guy again, standing in the very same spot as the day before, staring at us. At me. I tried to play it cool because my friends still didn't notice him, but before long I couldn't take it anymore and we went inside again. From what I remember, this happened for 3 or 4 days, and my friends started complaining that I wouldn't let them play and that I kept telling them to go back inside earlier than they were supposed to. On the 4th or 5th day, I made up my mind to pay no attention to him and just focus on playing. We were playing cricket that evening, and I was batting. I hit the ball hard, causing it to go over the gate, which was a very normal occurrence. According to our rules, the one responsible must fetch the ball. My heart started beating as I walked toward the gate because I could see the man's grin getting wider and creepier. He went towards the ball on the road and picked it up. He then held his hand out, gesturing at me to come and take it. I was scared shitless at this point, but I felt I had to go get the ball from him. As soon as I reached out to take the ball from his hand, he leaned in and whispered, and his words still ring clearly in my ears to this day. "I'm a good man. Look at the window when you go inside. I'll leave something for you." This sent shivers down my spine, and I ran away with the speed of light. When we were done with our cricket game, I saw him slide a piece of paper through the little opening under the window. Still grinning, he waved goodbye to me. As soon as he had left, I grabbed the paper and opened it. He had written his phone number and ordered me to call him at 2 o'clock sharp because he knew my parents would be asleep by then. He wrote that if I didn't call him, my friends' lives would be in danger. As an 8-year-old, I didn't know any better and believed his threat, so I called him on my mother's phone. He picked up the call, and I remained silent, too terrified to say a word. He said, "You're a good girl, just like I'm a good man. You should come live with me. Come outside, I'm waiting to pick you up." I went to the balcony, and he was actually there, standing by the gate, looking directly at me, waving and smiling. I couldn't take it anymore, so I started crying and disconnected the call. I ran inside and bawled my eyes out in my room. My crying did not wake my parents, so they remained unaware of the predator lurking outside our front gate. For the next few weeks, I wouldn't go outside. Everybody kept asking me why, but I refused to tell them. I don't remember how long it took, but the man eventually gave up and stopped coming to the gate. I was so relieved. Over time, the experience started fading from my memory, and I grew up. 10 years later, I was 18 and had long forgotten that man and my experience. My mother asked me to go buy some snacks. I took my little sister and went to a nearby shop at the end of our road. I was standing in line to check out, and the man behind me started nudging me, which made me very uncomfortable. I tried ignoring him at first, but he just kept nudging me. Annoyed, I turned around to look at him, only to realize it was the same man who used to watch me play with my friends all those years ago. Immediately, my face went pale, and I could feel my heart in my throat throbbing uncontrollably. I tried not to panic and calmed myself down by telling myself that he couldn't do anything to me in public. There were tons of people in the shop, and that gave me a sense of security. As soon as it was my turn to pay, I took out my wallet hastily, but he beat me to it and offered some cash to the shop owner. The owner looked at him weirdly, and then at me, because I was a regular there and he was seeing this man for the first time. I insisted on paying for myself, and the owner politely asked him to take his money back. I gave the bag to my sister and whispered to her to go home and tell our mom about this man following us. I wanted to be sure my sister would be safe in case the man planned to attack. I could see our house from the shop, so I watched and waited for her to get inside. Then it was my turn to go home. As soon as I stepped out of the shop, the man followed me and said, "You're a beautiful lady now. Let's catch up." I kept walking without acknowledging him, but he started increasing his speed, so I had to walk faster and faster. Soon I was running, and I could feel goosebumps all over my body. I glanced back and saw that he was catching up to me. The shop owner called out to him saying that he had left his change on the counter, asking him to come back. This distracted the man for a moment, which gave me just enough time to get inside my gate and lock it behind me. I told my mom everything after that. My dad lives in another city for work, so I didn't tell him since it would make him very worried and possibly affect his work. My uncle is a local cop. He's quite close with my family and very trustworthy. With his help, we tried to find the creepy guy, but couldn't. He literally vanished into thin air. It's been 2 years since that day, and I haven't seen him. I hope I never see him again in the future. I'm 20 now, and this incident instilled a paranoia in me. What if I see him again?
Our next story is narrated by Paul Brown from r/Let's Not Meet. There's nothing to be afraid of. Go back to bed.
My parents got divorced when I was 4 or 5 years old. It was pretty messy. I don't remember a lot of it, just that things weren't good at home for a while. During and after the divorce, my brother Chris, my mom, and I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment townhouse. Now, this is not the fancy townhouse you may imagine. It wasn't a complete shithole either, per se, but they were 30 or 40 years old by the time we moved in, and in a rougher part of town. Something a single mother with 2 kids could swing, you know? The layout of the apartment is important to the story, so bear with me. When you walk in the front door, the kitchen is immediately to your left, and there's a short entrance hallway in front of you. The kitchen has an open countertop area that looks into a dining spot for a table and a split-level, living room/den area that also had glass sliding doors leading to an open backyard where there was, honestly, a very sad and sparse playground. In the hallway entrance, again, on the right is a staircase leading up to our bedroom. One day after school, my brother and I were out playing in the backyard on the playground, doing our kid stuff, when my mom told us she wanted to go check the mail. Now, the mailboxes of the apartments are located at the front entrance, which is on the opposite side of the complex from us. Naturally, with my brother and I being 9 and 5 years old, respectively, my mom didn't want to, leave us alone, especially since it was nearly dark outside. We came inside and got ready to leave. On the way out, I remember my mom asking Chris if he had closed and locked the sliding glass door, which he responded to in the affirmative. So maybe 20 or 30 minutes later, we're back from the mailroom with a handful of letters and a newspaper. I don't know. I don't remember everything, but I can picture my mom walking up to the front door and unlocking it before walking inside. For some reason, I was hanging back outside, and I waited to go in with my brother and mom. And because I'm in the driveway, when my brother sees someone else's feet disappear at the top of the landing, he assumes it's me running upstairs, not someone running to hide. Chris goes to the kitchen, and I actually go upstairs directly into our bedroom to get ready for the night. I'm in the bathroom. My mom is at the table in the dining area near the split-level living area downstairs. I'm oblivious in the bathroom. But downstairs, my brother Chris can hear someone walking around in my mom's bedroom. Now, I had a bad habit at that age of going through people's stuff. I mean, not maliciously. I was barely 5, just curiosity. Whatever. Chris, thinking I'm being a nosy bastard going through all of our mom's jewelry, runs upstairs to catch me in the act and get me in trouble. Chris sprints up the steps and across the hall to my mom's bedroom and throws himself stomach first on the bed. He says, like in a movie, he slowly looks up, first seeing the feet from the steps, then the body of a tall, slender man. And finally, resting his eyes on the bright green latex Halloween mask on this man's face. He looked like a goblin, and he had one of our kitchen knives in his hand. My brother froze on the bed, silently in shock as the man in the goblin mask raised one finger to his own mouth, indicating for him to be quiet. And in true form for my brother, he screamed bloody murder for our mom. Now, I heard my brother make a beeline for my mom's room, but I have no clue what's going on up there. I'm in an oversized sleep shirt. I'm getting a glass of milk before bed down in the kitchen. When Chris screamed, the man ran down the stairs and ran into my mom, who immediately jumped into action. Our baseball gear from earlier was still in the living room, and my mom grabbed a metal bat to confront the man. They started fighting, while he was taking swipes at her with a knife. I finally noticed what's happening in this moment. On a step stool to reach the counter and to pour a glass of milk. I look over the bar and see the man push my mom from the steps and onto the floor of the living room. Before he can get to her, she starts swinging wildly, trying desperately to make contact with the bat. Finally, she manages to clock him right in the side of the temple, and he staggers back from her. I was watching this just fully frozen in place, unable to move a muscle. And I didn't even feel scared, not in that moment. I just couldn't process, what I was seeing. It shut my whole body down. So the man decided it wasn't worth the trouble and ran toward the front door, sprinting right by the kitchen. There I was, I still just frozen there. Milk continuing to spill out of my overflowing cup and all over the counter and floor. He stopped and turned directly to me. I remember staring directly into the cartoonish, empty eyes of the goblin mask he was wearing, and then to the knife, and then back to the mask. He let loose a primal scream, his rage and frustration boiling over, before running through the front door and slamming it behind him so hard that he shook the whole house. I was stuck there, just dumbfounded. I must have only stood on that stool spilling milk everywhere for another second, but it felt like hours before I regained control of my limbs and put the nearly empty milk jug back on the counter. After that, it's all a blur. Cops, my dad, and people from the neighborhood descending on our condo, moving, the divorce finalizing. But I tell you, that night is fixed in my brain for the last 30 years. Moral of the story? Lock your doors, everybody. Don't just assume like my brother did. If you freeze up like me, you might not have a baseball bat warrior like my mom to save you.
You're listening to Disturbed. We'll be right back.
Host the ultimate backyard barbecue with Whole Foods Market. It's the Hot Grill Summer event through July 16th with sizzling sales on no antibiotics ever boneless beef ribeye steak and beef New York strip steak. Plus, check out sales on sustainable wild-caught Alaska sockeye salmon, organic strawberries, and more. In a hurry? Choose grab-and-go favorites like picnic salads and sushi, plus plenty of cooler-friendly beverages. Make it a hot grill summer at Whole Foods Market.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Welcome back to the podcast. Our final story takes place eerily close to a cemetery. Narrated by Terra Ashe.
When I was a teenager, I moved into my father's home for the first time in California. I had some paranormal experiences in this house that I often now joke about with my friends, as I believe it was 100% my own fault. Sometimes after my father and stepmother had an argument, his belongings would go missing, causing him to be late for work. He thought she was moving his stuff, but she would always say that her deceased father was still around and that his spirit was messing with things and misplacing items. I never really believed this, as I wouldn't put it past her to hide my dad's things herself. Nevertheless, my stepmother and I would often talk about ghosts and the paranormal. We weren't a religious family or anything, so it was always a very open discussion. I was 16 and loved listening to scary stories on YouTube whilst painting, doing homework, etc. So I really started to lean into this interest. One time after we had talked about Ouija boards, I, as an edgy teenager, decided to go out and buy one. I told my friends about it, and they were all very intrigued by the idea of trying it. There was a cemetery next door to my house, right on the other side of the fence. Naturally, my friends and I decided this was the perfect place to play with the board for the first time, on Halloween night, no less. The security was amped up that night, so my 3 friends and I found a large tombstone to hide behind so we wouldn't be seen from the road. We broke out the Ouija board, placed our hands on the planchette, asked if any spirits were with us, and absolutely nothing happened. After that, I didn't take the Ouija board seriously and believed I had nothing to fear from it. I tried using the board a second time, and this would prove to be the last time. I was in my house with my friends, Callie and Rose. This time, we decided to do a more official seance and did a quick Google how-to search beforehand. We lit candles, and Rose and I put on blindfolds before placing our hands on the planchette. Callie watched the board, ready to read out anything the planchette spelled out. We asked a few questions with no responses. I was almost ready to give up when suddenly the planchette moved. We asked for the entity's name, and it sounded like an old Hebrew name. For the life of me, I can't remember what it was. I wasn't scared because I assumed Rose and Callie were trying to fool me. I still didn't believe the board had any supernatural power. We got a few more responses, but they were boring, so we lost interest and said goodbye, closing out the session. After that night, strange things began to happen in our home. It started out small, so I don't remember everything that happened in the beginning or a chronological timeline of events. I started waking up in the middle of the night, and I would feel this strong presence in the corner of my room by the door. Oddly enough, I never felt frightened, as the energy felt, female. I would stare into the dark for a bit, then just roll over and go back to sleep. I also felt strange in the guest bathroom and would avoid going in there at all costs. At the time, I just thought it was the lighting that I didn't like. It was unusually bright and would make me feel extremely aware and anxious. The activity started amping up when I fell sick for 2 weeks. I almost never got sick, but at this time I was incredibly unwell, so I ended up going to the doctor who gave me antibiotics. It turns out I was allergic to the antibiotics, so I became even more ill and had a bad rash all over my chest and stomach. At the time, my parents were redoing their bathroom, and since they also didn't like the guest bathroom, they used mine. As a result, I was sequestered to the other guest bedroom and bathroom so they wouldn't catch my illness. I hated being in the guest room when I was sick. I was in the most confusing fever dream at all times and felt like I was being watched and that the energy was being sucked out of me. I felt like a huge dark weight was on me when I was lying down. I heard voices speaking to me in the dead of night. Despite being so sick, I was still self-aware enough to know that I had a burning fever and was probably hallucinating, so I just brushed it off. I would feel better if I left the room and slept on the couch or snuck into my own room. When I finally got better and got my room back, I slept like a baby the first night. But by the second night, the energy had followed me there. I would wake up every night and feel the energy in the corner of my room. Before, it had seemed docile, but now it felt threatening. I started hearing new noises in my room that I had never heard before. It sounded like scratching in the wall behind my bed. I complained about it so much that my parents got the house checked for rodents, but none were found. I used to hate going into the guest bathroom, but now, if I even walked past it, I would feel something touching me. It was so subtle that it would take a moment for me to even register it. I started listening to music 24/7 at home so I wouldn't react if the spirit or spirits spoke to me. I felt like acknowledging it would make it worse, so I just kept trying to ignore it all and brush it off. One night, my parents went out for dinner, promising to bring me some food to go on the way back, so I could just stay home and chill. I was standing in the laundry room, which is right by our open-concept living room and kitchen. I was scooping dog food for my 2 German shepherds who were hovering over their bowls next to me. Suddenly, I heard a lady say, "Hey, T." T is the nickname my family uses for me, and since it was a woman's voice, I turned towards the door and said, "Yeah," thinking it was my stepmother. My gaze automatically locked on the hallway that proceeds from the kitchen straight across from me. The hallway was empty, and I remembered that I was home alone. I looked down at my dogs, and they also had their eyes glued to the same spot as me. I walked a few steps out, and my dogs followed timidly, which was strange. Suddenly, it felt like I was in a cheesy horror film. My dog's ball rolled from behind the kitchen counter and stopped when it hit the wall ahead of us. Keep in mind, my dogs were sitting right next to me, so they couldn't have caused the ball to roll. I froze from shock, but remembered my family had the Life 360 app where we can see each other's location. I checked the app, and my parents were driving on the freeway 20 minutes away. I didn't know what to do, so I just fed my dogs with tears in my eyes, then went into my room to hide behind my desk. The scariest event happened a few hours after I smoked some weed, so I take it with a grain of salt. Nevertheless, it was absolutely terrifying and sat with me for a long time. I hadn't tried weed many times before that, and I usually got super paranoid when I was high. This time, however, I was coming down from it, and I was way more relaxed than usual. I got home, took a nice warm shower, and listened to some music. I was so relaxed that I even walked around my room naked after getting out of the shower, which is something I never do. I'm extremely reserved and find clothing comforting. As I was walking around my room, I decided to move my bowl of sewing pins from my dresser to my desk. I dropped the bowl and had to bend down and dig into my carpet to find all the pins. As I bent down all naked and vulnerable, I suddenly felt like the walls were closing in on me. I could hear whispers coming from the walls around me. My vision started to blur and I felt tightness in my chest. Suddenly, I heard a deep growl from over my shoulder that made my entire body tense up. Instantly, I was covered in goosebumps, all the hair on my body raised and my eyes filled with tears. I laid in my bed and hid like a little kid, even though I was 16 years old. I have never been so frightened in my life. I laid there for so long that I eventually had to pee really bad, but the thought of getting out of bed filled me with dread. I FaceTimed my best friend and explained what had happened. She comforted me until I felt safe enough to get up. I quickly threw on some clothes and went to the bathroom. This experience scared me so bad that I didn't touch weed for over 2 years. When I went to college, I became a functional pothead during exams, and I've never had another experience like this while high. After this event, nothing major or scary happened again. I would still hear a woman's voice from time to time, and our kitchen sink would turn on by itself. But that was the last time I was afraid of anything paranormal. My family moved to another state, and nothing else has happened to me since. My stepmother threw out my Ouija board during the move, so it never got to touch base in the new house. I feel that by playing the Ouija board, I opened up some sort of contact that otherwise wouldn't have been known. I tried to psychoanalyze the living situation I was in. My family was extremely emotionally toxic, and we had our issues, that's for sure. So I have considered whether the mental toll of my family dynamic manifested itself in some anxieties for this unseen force. However, in the new house, nothing ever happened, and our family dynamic became even worse there, so I don't believe that's the cause. Was I just a paranoid and anxious teen with some family troubles and an interest in the paranormal that made me believe these things were happening around me? Or did I open myself up to communication from the spirit realm that night that I played with the board with Rose and Callie?
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at disturbedpodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producers are Noah Fouts and Elizabeth Flood. Our audio engineer is Nathan Corson. Executive producers Bridget Coyne and Gerardo Orlando. Until next time, stay safe out there.
Zaxby's has been perfecting chicken fingers for 30 years. So what now? Now, we go to the sea! Introducing the Southern Fried Shrimp Meal, with butterflied shrimp that's perfectly golden fried. A perfect blend of cocktail sauce and Zax sauce that we call Zax Tail Sauce. Plus perfectly seasoned crinkle fries, perfectly buttery Texas toast, and even a drink with perfectly pebbled ice. Here's to 30 more years of perfect. The new Southern Fried Shrimp Meal at Zaxby's. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.